Epilepsy has long been the subject of many misconceptions, both by the public and by those with the condition. I'm Michael Learned. The Epilepsy Foundation of America and I would like to explore this with you so that we can all understand better what epilepsy is and how it can be controlled. That's Dave Rogers. In his college days, not too long ago, he was a really fine swimmer. You know, always in the papers, someone to watch. Actually, he's still someone to watch. Dave's an associate with, well, the name doesn't really matter. The point is, he's bright, confident, he knows what he wants and what he doesn't want. Dave's been talking with a neurologist this week, taking some medical tests. He wants to find out why he's been doing some rather unusual, well, let's call them unpredictable things. His wife, Diane, and his boss think maybe it's nerves, job pressure. I don't know, he fidgets a lot, sometimes stares into space, you know, sort of blanks out. He just hasn't seemed the same since when? That car accident a few months back.
Epilepsy. It could be epilepsy. That doesn't make any sense. I'm healthy. An athlete. I've never been sick. Colds. Mental problems, is that part of it? I don't think so. There was that woman over on Parker and 23rd Street by the post office. Epilepsy. Oh, God, not me. Hi, honey. Good day?
Hi, yeah, real good. How about you?
Oh, not bad.
Did you see Dr. Stein?
I'll tell you about it in a minute. Let me get something to drink.
Okay. Well, what did he say? How did it go?
Well, it wasn't bad. It was okay. We went over some of my medical history again. Details. Things I couldn't even remember. Well, he'd gotten a hold of Dr. Talbot's lab tests. Blood, urine, that stuff. We talked a little about the results of the EEG. The implications. I'm scheduled for a CAT scan tomorrow.
A CAT scan?
Some kind of special x-ray. He'll have the results on Friday, so I'm supposed to see him again Friday afternoon. And then I guess he'll know what's wrong. For sure. Diane, Dr. Stein thinks I might have epilepsy.
Well, what does that mean?
I guess I don't really know. Yet. It's got to affect us, though. My job. I'll have to get another job. Another kind of job. But who would... Did I ever mention, I see Harris watching me sometimes. You know, like I'm... And what about us, Diane? I mean, it won't be the same for us, either. You'll have to take care of me. Stay with me.
Honey, I will take care of you. I will.
But I don't want you, or anyone, to take care of me. Well, I've always been so sure of myself. Well, you said it yourself. No doubts. Doubtless and dauntless. I guess we'll have to come up with some new adjectives, won't we? Maybe damaged or dismal.
Oh, no, don't. Don't.
I'm afraid, Diane. Now I'm afraid. And what about tomorrow? I've got to take off more time from work tomorrow.
Honey, look. Just try to calm down and, well, why don't you go change your clothes and we'll just have a nice, quiet dinner. I fixed your favorite.
How long do you think he's going to put up with this kind of nonsense? I'm going to take time off work, go to the hospital for another damn test.
Hello? Oh, hi, Mother. Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Look, can I call you back? We were just about to sit down and have dinner. Okay. Bye-bye. That was Mother. I told her I'd call her back.
What?
On the phone.
Phone? I didn't even hear it ring. Wait, wasn't I changing so we could eat? Why am I just sitting here?
Yeah, you were going to change. Why don't you go ahead and do that, and I'll set the table for dinner. Okay?
Hi, David Rogers. I have an appointment with Dr. Stein.
Oh, yes, Mr. Rogers, would you have a seat, please? Doctor will be with you shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers, the doctor will see you now.
Well, I've reviewed the radiologist's report on the scan and put together with the EEG and my own evaluations, I feel that we are indeed dealing with epilepsy. One of the forms of epilepsy, that is.
One of the forms? There's more than one?
Oh, yes. People are affected in several different ways. But first, let me explain what epilepsy is, what it means. Epilepsy is not a disease. It's not a condition that assumes control over your body in any permanent fashion. Epilepsy is a symptom of disturbed electrical activity in the brain. It's an episodic disorder, somewhat like static that occasionally interferes with your radio. Between seizures, most people are normal and healthy, just like your radio. Most important, there is a treatment. Not a cure, but treatment that eliminates the seizures, or at least limits them.
Well, as the prophets say, there's always a little good news with the bad news. But let's backtrack a minute. Just what causes these episodes, these excess electrical discharges? I always thought a person was born with epilepsy. Was I born with it and it's just gotten around to showing up now?
I don't think you were born with it, Dave.
It is true that some people are born with epilepsy, but that is not the majority. Epilepsy can affect anyone at any age. It has no single cause, and it is not contagious. Anything that can injure the brain can cause epilepsy. And of course, many causes can be prevented. That's why groups concerned with preventing epilepsy campaign so vocally for maintenance of the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, use of seat belts, and mandatory use of sports helmets and motorcycle helmets. Other causes are birth defects and injuries, childhood fevers, drug and alcohol abuse, as well as other toxic reactions like snake bite, botulism, salmonella, and lead poisoning. Brain tumors, clots, and infections are frequent causes, sometimes poor nutrition, chemical imbalance, or in the elderly, poor circulation. Even some childhood diseases such as measles, mumps, and diphtheria, which of course can be prevented by inoculations.
However, in your case, Dave, Since you didn't experience seizures as a child, when 75 to 90% first get them, and since your tests showed no distinct evidence of a tumor, it's highly likely that the head injury from your car accident was the cause.
Well, if my brain cells are damaged, what does that mean in terms of my brain power? My ability to think? I've got a job, you know. I'm on the line all the time.
Well, most cases of epilepsy are not caused by the kind of brain damage that interferes with intelligence. As a matter of fact, many brilliant people have had epilepsy. Dostoevsky, Paganini, Handel, Alfred Nobel. And many of my patients are professional people, and people with plain good common sense.
Just how many people have epilepsy?
Well, figures vary. But the Federal Epilepsy Commission estimates that about 1 of 100 Americans has epilepsy. That means about 2 million people. Makes it rather common now, doesn't it?
Sounds like I have a lot of company. But let's get down to some hard facts. You said there are several kinds of epilepsy. Which type do I have?
Well, before I answer that, let me explain that although we doctors have a big, long international classification system for epilepsy, I'll just tell you a little bit about each of the types of epilepsy.
There essentially are two types of epileptic seizures, generalized and partial. They range from convulsions to momentary lapses of attention. Tonic-clonic, formerly called grand mal, is the best-known generalized seizure because it is the most common, about 80%, and most visually dramatic. Tonic-clonic seizures are characterized by a convulsion where the body stiffens, then shakes. Saliva may accumulate in the mouth, and there is a temporary loss of consciousness for several minutes. The best one can do for a person having a tonic-clonic seizure is to clear a space for her, remove any hard or dangerous objects from the area, remove her glasses, and loosen her clothing in the neck and head area. She should be turned on her side. Contrary to what a lot of people think, no hard object should be placed in her mouth, as they may cause her to choke or harm her mouth or teeth. The person will come out of her seizure in a few minutes, usually a bit confused and somewhat tired from the intense muscular activity. She should be allowed to rest before she goes on her way. Tonic-clonic seizures are therefore the most distressing for the victim, not because she is suffering physically, but because she often awakes to find herself on display. Generalized tonic-clonic is the type of seizure most people associate with epilepsy. It's also the one that has been most successfully controlled with medication. A second type of generalized seizure is found in children, usually between the ages of 4 and 14. Absence, which was previously referred to as petit mal, is often mistaken by parents and teachers for simple daydreaming. It frequently goes unnoticed even by the child. The affected person's only clue is that she must reorient herself to her previous activity. An absence seizure lasts for less than a minute and consists simply of staring or eye blinking and a momentary lapse of consciousness. A child might have 50 to 100 repeated episodes of this type of seizure a day. Drugs can often rather successfully control these seizures. Fortunately, many children spontaneously outgrow absence seizures at puberty. The major type of partial seizure is called complex partial. That's the type Dave has. You may have heard it called a psychomotor or temporal lobe seizure. It varies in its specific characteristics for each person, but generally it consists of 3 brief phases. First, there is a suspension of activity and a staring or a dazed expression. Second, repetitious, automatic, purposeless behavior and poorly coordinated movements. And third, disordered, confused behavior, sometimes fear, anger, or hostility, followed by amnesia regarding the event. Complex partial seizures can happen one or more times weekly, monthly, or annually. The person having the seizure may see visions, hear sounds, be confused, get headaches.
At the beginning of a seizure, Dave, you may find that you have a brief sensation in your head or stomach. You may even sense an unpleasant odor, hear a buzzing or a ringing in your ear, maybe see spots. This is called an aura. Another thing, sometimes for a while after coming out of a seizure, you'll probably feel confused. You may even feel emotionally upset. You might feel afraid or anxious or even angry.
Yes. Yes, I've seen Dave like that. He'll get irritable over nothing, really. Not right after a seizure, but a short time later.
It's not my fault. What do you want me to do?
I never really connected the two.
Well, there does seem to be some connection.
Why didn't you come up with that half?
It is also true that the person having the seizure has no recollection of the event after it's over. It's important, then, in the days when we're trying to find the best medication for you and are monitoring your response to it, that Diane keep an eye out so she can estimate the number of seizures you're having. But if we work together on this, the results should be dramatic.
The $64,000 question, then, is, what can you do for me? And how soon?
Well, we've already begun. My procedure with you is the typical one. Yesterday at the hospital, I had you take a CAT scan that helps pinpoint brain damage due to tumors or other conditions that can cause seizures. Earlier in the week, we did an electroencephalogram, or EEG, to trace the source of the electrical discharge, to see where it spreads, measure the intensity, observe the duration. My goal, our goal, is to control or at least reduce the frequency of your seizure so that they interfere with your life as little as possible. It will take medication and considerable monitoring, especially in the beginning, when we're trying to find the appropriate medicine and dosage for you. I'm starting with a drug often used for complex partial epilepsy. If that doesn't work just right, I'll adjust the dosage. And if that doesn't work correctly, I'll substitute another drug. We'll pursue this together. You, Diane, and I. Your job, Dave, is to take the drug regularly. Now, before you leave today, we'll figure out a time of day that's convenient for you to take your medication. A time you could stick to. Above all, do not suddenly stop taking it. Remember this. Epilepsy cannot be cured. But for 80% of the people that have it, partial or complete control is possible with medication.
Continues to do a little bit of shopping.
There's no doubt the drugs are a boon to someone with epilepsy. But like so many drugs, they do have side effects, particularly in the beginning. Some patients feel very sluggish or drowsy at the outset. Nausea, skin rashes, or other side effects may occur. These reactions may subside with reduced dosage or with another drug. Obviously, this is a period of trial and error, but the outcome is worth it. The aim is to find a drug or a combination of drugs that maximizes seizure control while minimizing side effects.
Now, as for you, Dave, while I'm doing all this medical tinkering, you could help yourself by avoiding extreme emotional or physical stress. You know, tension, extreme exhaustion, not enough sleep, unnecessary drugs, too much alcohol, even worrying about having seizures.
Well, what else is involved besides taking my medicine, seeing you, taking blood tests, avoiding all fatigue and stress, and in general the joys of life? I mean, where's the hard part?
There are some hard parts, Dave, for both of you. For example, until we're sure we have this under control, don't drive.
Now, wait a minute. You've got to be kidding. I mean, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, that's impossible. I'm sorry. I can give up some things, but I have to drive.
Dave, please, think about it for a minute. Have you had any accident that you can remember? You wouldn't want to be responsible for injuring another person. A child, perhaps. Anyway, in this state, you'll be able to be certified for driving when you've been seizure-free for 2 years. That requirement varies from state to state. And listen, Dave, you're an intelligent guy. Do us both a favor. Report your seizures to me honestly. Another thing. If you normally operate dangerous tools, you probably shouldn't. If you like to climb mountains or even ladders, it'd be better not to. If you want to swim, go with a friend. Someone who will watch you closely and be able to help you out of the water if you have a seizure. For everything you give up or modify, like being a pilot or swimming the channel, you can substitute something else. The world is full of things you can do with equal enjoyment or productivity. You are still in control. You will build your own city and your own walls. You're an intelligent person, Dave. You could probably figure out better than anyone else what your boundaries are. And incidentally, those boundaries will change depending on the success of the medication. I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. You're going to tell yourself and then live with it as a set of logical choices. For the first several months, while you're searching for control, while you're adjusting to the mere idea of having a problem, life is going to seem like a terrible burden. You might even want to get some counseling. Talk to somebody who has already learned to live with epilepsy. I can give you the name and number of a local epilepsy chapter. They are there to help guide you. Self-image is at stake. Independence. Security. But as you adjust and the seizures become infrequent or disappear altogether, you and your epilepsy should stop being the center of your life. There are going to be people, Dave, who, if they know you have epilepsy, will try to set limits for you. A boss, a family member, a friend. By your attitude, you can let them know that you consider the periodic seizures a minor inconvenience. Momentary lapse. A passing thing. Not a full-time concern for you or for them. You may not know this, Dave, but people with epilepsy make excellent employees. They are highly motivated people. Incidentally, with no higher absentee or accident rate than any other employee. But I think motivation is the key. Conquering the disorder and society's opinion of it becomes a challenge. One that can be won. But enough. Let's start your medication and make an appointment to meet 2 weeks from today. Check your reactions, take blood tests, and we'll answer all the questions that you and Diane could think of between now and then. And I'm sure there'll be many.
Well, looks like for better or for worse, it's just galloped into our lives. Uninvited, I might add. I wasn't expecting it just yet.
But it's not as bad as I thought it would be, Dave.
I guess we'll find out.
I feel guilty, like I've been mentally cheating a lot of people. Scratching them off the lists, well, we all keep quiet in our heads.
Well, for Pete's sake, don't go scratching me off any list. Hey, I'm terrific.
I'd like to be able to tell you that everything went smoothly for Dave and Diane. You know, with fairness, reason, and justice for all, that all the right things were said and done. It didn't, though. Life's not like that. There was a difficult period finding the right medicine and then adjusting it so that Dave wouldn't fall asleep in the middle of a committee meeting. Dave had to learn how to answer the stares and the questions he encountered, still encounters sometimes. Diane is not always tolerant when Dave blows up after a seizure. Sometimes she yells back. Impatience, I guess you'd call it. There are long periods of coping disrupted by an occasional tantrum. There have been transitions, too. Dave doesn't swim competitively anymore, but the spirit's sure still there. 6-0, 6-2, 6-4. Poor Charlie. He takes the train with Charlie now, which is nice. It gives them more time to argue about the state of the economy and such. And Diane says he's cut his 12-hour workdays down to a mere 8 or 9. Now that's progress. But essentially, Dave is still Dave. He's busy, active, funny, and frequently wrong in his opinions about the economy. He doesn't talk much about his condition anymore. His preoccupation with it tapered off somewhat after his initial war with it, and those first few months of his explaining it all to Charlie and his wife. I guess he's told a lot of people about it. A one-man campaign, you might say. I think he's making some headway. People are beginning to listen. And why shouldn't we? We're all vulnerable. It's very common, you know. Epilepsy.